So today we are going to talk about how we have been on our journey of consuming raw data, transforming that raw data to create a data product, and then taking the value from the data product, deriving the insights, and then sharing it to business so that business can take that data-driven decisions in order to achieve an impactful outcome. So we have used the word data product. Let's take a deep dive to understand what do we mean by data as a product. So like a couple of you have talked about it, a lot of organizations are drowning in data, but they are starving for insights. So like we know that once we have the data, we need to get the data from multiple sources, and there comes the data as a product is helping to bridge this gap between raw information and the insight. So you take the data from multiple sources, that's why you see here at multiple polyglot input ports. The data can reside anywhere in the cloud. It can reside on-premise. It can reside on your files, network, storage. You take the data, you apply the transformation, and you produce the output. So we use the term here polyglot. It means it can be of any forms and shapes. So when you are producing the output can be an API, it can be a SQL endpoint, it can be an event streaming source, so that you can integrate with other systems. Now let's look at the key characteristics of the data as a product. So the first thing that we see here is that discoverable. Your data product should be discoverable. It means that in an e-commerce, you go on a site, you search for a product, and then you go and add that product into your cart. Similarly, let's say you are within an organization, you want to search for a data product, there should be a catalog where you can go and search for the data to get the data product visibility out of that catalog. What do we mean by addressable? So like you go and try to add products into your cart, you have a product URL, right? Similarly, the data product should be able to address with the help of a URL, which means it has a unique resource. It should be self-describing. You don't need a manual person to talk about it that, hey, this is the orders data, this is the customer data, these are the attributes of it, right? It should be self-describing. It means that when you're building these kind of data products, you should think these kind of key attributes in mind so that you can self-describe that data product to an end stakeholder. It should be secure. We know that data product and data resides in multiple geographical regions. That is the reason security should be the key element when you are setting this paradigm of data as a product. It should be interoperable. What does it mean? You've created products, but if it is not able to integrate with other systems, then there is no point of integration. That's where the interoperability is the key element when you are liaising with other systems within an organization.
So what has been the problem which you have been trying to solve, or what are the different problems we can solve? So for any e-commerce platform, the user's journey is kind of fairly simple, right? If you kind of look at it from the 10,000 feet view, the user lands on the site, tries to discover the product. If the user finds the product interesting or catering to the needs, they add it to the cart and then eventually check out, right? It's a fairly simple journey, and we have all been leveraging different e-commerce sites for our different purposes, right? However, under the hood, there's a lot of stuff which is kind of going on, which has to be tracked. And all these key KPIs and metrics are tracked by different stakeholders across the organization, and it allows them to kind of take various decisions. Decisions like whether to kind of scale up your investment or you scale it down, how the feature is performing, whether to kind of iterate over the feature, and many other decisions are taken across the organization. So for something as simple as a site visit, right? Some of the key KPIs and metrics which you are supposed to track or help your organization track is incoming traffic. So whether this incoming traffic is organic, or it is coming in from the paid SEO, or from the marketing campaigns. And when the user actually lands on the site, tries to discover the product, what is your search exit rate? How easily your customers are able to find the product? And if they're not able to find the product, what are the decisions your product management team has to kind of take eventually to help the customers find the product easily? And once the product has been discovered and it has been added to cart, how many of the carts are actually getting converted? Because to be transparent and frank, I use my carts in some of the e-commerce sites as my wish list and never go back to them, right? So that's where you see a lot of different e-commerce sites kind of like chasing you, try to kind of convert those carts. And that becomes a key metrics and KPI to help understand business on how your e-commerce platform is performing. And then when it comes to purchase, right? We have all different purchasing behaviors, and we kind of like leverage different payment platforms. So what are the payment platforms your customers are using, right? So all these touch points help makes business take various decisions. And talking about post-purchase, it's an altogether different world of tracking different key KPIs and metrics. For example, your customer lifetime value. So these are different key KPIs and insights which you have to kind of track, which allows some of your key stakeholders and personas in your organization to take some constructive decisions, right? For example, your senior executives or senior leaders would be interested, as I told you, about what is your overall health of your e-commerce platform in terms of incoming traffic, how many carts are getting converted, what is your actual conversion rate in terms of percentage and revenue, and towards the end, what is the overall customer satisfaction. So that allows them to kind of figure out whether to kind of continue to invest or figure out whether they need to kind of pivot. Your product managers, product management team. We spoke about the product discovery. So if your search exit rate is kind of going up, that means your users are not able to kind of discover your product easily. So where and how you need to kind of pivot or intervene to help make that product discovery easier. Another key persona is marketing managers. So the marketing team eventually ends up spawning a lot of campaigns to attract the customers back to the online platform. And they also are responsible for engaging the customers via different channels, right? So providing them key KPIs and metrics on what has been the brand awareness, what has been the engagement of the customers, helps them kind of make them key decisions and investments. And the key team, which is data analytics team, which is kind of breathing this data in and out daily, and is actually responsible for sharing those stories to your business stakeholders, is the key consumer of your data and data as a product. So throughout this journey, we spoke about different key KPIs and metrics which are supposed to be tracked. So these are just some of the examples. So we can kind of jump on to how we kind of actually solve the problem.
So like we have heard about, a lot of organizations find themselves grappling with the fragmented data silos. I think somebody talked about it during the initial talk. So you see a lot of data sources are scattered within an organization. And if you want to measure these kind of KPIs like customer insights, customer lifetime value that Neeraj talked about it, you'll face a lot of struggle. You'll go and find someone that, hey, which data source should I look upon? That is the first challenge as an engineer you face. Let's say even if you get to know the source, the second challenge that you face, you'll struggle to get the documentation of the data because the column comments are missing in the table or in the source. The third challenge that you face generally is you don't need to know that how to get access to the source, right? So to break this kind of fragmented silos brings the concept of the data product in order to ensure that you are trying to aggregate all the sources, all the domains, and making it a well-carved domain-bounded context. So that will help you to ensure that you are getting the data of a particular domain and deriving and transforming the data that will help you to create the end output and the outcome of it. So with this approach, like we have seen, we have orders data, customers data, you have created a domain, and then you try to aggregate the domain, and there comes the kind of a cycle of intelligence, because there is a proper framework that you have to follow in order to create this end output, which is a data product. Once you gather the data from multiple sources, you call it a raw kind of a data product. Now then you have to apply some of the cleansing layer to it, then to create an enhanced model of it, which you can call it a native output product. Now once you enhance that data, you have cleansed that data, there comes to create a model output of it. You are applying aggregations and then you are creating a model to it. Now once you have created a model, there comes the moment of truth when you are converting the raw data into an information, which is an insight. That is when you are making your raw information alive to the business, because business are looking for insights. Now once you have created the insights, business will take some actions. Now once you deploy those kind of insights and products, you have to follow some kind of process to productionize that and deploy it into production. Now, once you deploy into production, the output of that data will take into action. And that action will lead to more data because business will take some action on top of that data, which will lead to more data from other sources. So that's why you see a whole cycle of it. It is not just a step, it is a cycle of intelligence.
So let's look at one of the examples, right? So on your right-hand side, you're seeing one of the consumer-oriented data products, which is nothing but the product recommendation which we are trying to, where we are trying to cater to the end consumer. So how we go from the siloed sources to the product recommendation data product being delivered. So as Ram called out, you have to kind of start focusing on building source-oriented data products, right? So in this case, if you have to start from scratch, you will kind of, let's say, start with 4 data products, where the data product belongs to kind of like order domain, product domain, click stream, where the users are kind of landing on your site and clicking on different experiences of your site, and eventually your product information data product. So now each of these data products could be used to kind of deliver different insights on your key KPIs and metrics, but not on the aggregated or wholesome level. So you can eventually add an additional layer of aggregated data products, which here we are calling out as order analytics data product and product analytics data product. So you can use the output from these data products to deliver product recommendations. Now, these product recommendations could be a predictive model, or it could be a historical model based on the user's past behavior. So when it comes to kind of prediction, it could be a machine learning prediction model where it kind of like figures out like what's going to be the user's next action. And then it can find the cross-selling and upselling opportunities and then starts recommending the product to the end consumer. The output from these analytics products could also be used to deliver key KPIs and metrics, right? So for example, for order analytics, like what has been the total revenue over the period of, let's say, last several quarters or last several years. So you can use this aggregated data product to share those key KPIs and insights in terms of visualizations or API. And same is for your product, like how many of your products are actually in the shape and form which are discoverable or sellable on the site which the user is visiting. So it looks fairly simple, but as Ram kind of shared, the cycle of intelligence, there is a lot goes on behind the scene to acquire, clean, model the data, and then deliver it in eventually in terms of like output ports, which are nothing but your visualizations or API visualization dashboards or APIs, which leads to certain decisions. And those decisions could be additional features, which eventually would be deployed again to your site, which will again lead to additional data being generated. So then you again start that cycle of again collating that data and baking that data into your existing data products.
So there are some of the key pillars when you're building a data product. Like we have heard about acquisition just now. You are acquiring the data from multiple sources and you have to build new data products. So it has different formats like Parquet, Avro, CSV, and you should be very cautious when you're choosing the right format because these formats are important when you're building a product in terms of scalability and in terms of its durability as well. It also depends on use case by use case as well. So generally, because this is a continuous cycle and you also want to ensure that when you are building new products, you can reuse some of the part rather than re-engineering every time. So that's the reason it comes the concept of a starter kits. So you can use data product starter kits. It's a reusable code which can help to onboard new products easily. It's like a scaffolding code which can read the data and produce the output. The other main important thing is discoverability, observability, and monitoring. So generally business stakeholders wants to know that if your KPI is deviating by X percentage, then why it is deviating. To achieve that, you should be able to raise alerts to business when you are creating those kind of products. Otherwise, if they are not getting alerts, there is no point of value delivering by that product. If the data freshness or the latest data arrival we cannot expose to business, then there is no point of exposing that product also to the business because they also want to know when it was last refreshed, what is the last time when it got loaded. All these key pillars helps around to establish the right observability, monitoring, and discoverability of the product. The other most important key pillar is governance. In the data governance, you are ensuring that because a lot of compliance are there, like GDPR, SOX compliance, and you also want to expose the data to the right audience. If I'm not intended to consume that data, I should not be exposed for that. That is the reason you should ensure that you are applying the principle of least privilege to the data product. And that's why governance is an important factor while you're creating the data product. And once you have created the data product, the output that you are exposing to the end consumer, it can be in the form of API, SQL interface, abstraction layer, so that it can integrate with different systems, whether it is deployed to any on-premise system or an on-cloud system. The output layer should be able to seamlessly integrate, and that's why the consumption layer is very important to provide the output in a seamless fashion. It can be a dashboard, it can be a API, and it can be a model as well.
All right. So building a platform like e-commerce is a cross-functional organization sport, right? It's not one team sport. So even across the cross-functional organization, when the cross-functional organization aspects are being played out, there are many teams and many stakeholders which are at play to kind of make those decisions. So if you have a robust data as a product platform, it helps you make your life a lot easier. First of all your stakeholders kind of feel very, very much empowered in kind of getting access to the key KPIs and metrics easily, and helps them take those decisions. When they have to kind of collaborate across different organizations, different cross-functional organizations, everybody is on the same talking point. So it becomes easier to kind of bring the alignment much faster. And if those things kind of start happening sooner, it allows the stakeholders, product managers, and all the key personas which we talked about to take decisions faster and get those productionized features out in the market in much more efficient and less time. Eventually, as you are kind of scaling up, churning through this data, gathering insights, helping business stakeholders make those decisions, you're able to kind of find new and hidden opportunities in the existing market, and as you are scaling out in the new markets.
So in this journey, the way we have heard right now, there are a lot of stages to it. Similarly, we have key lessons to share. One of the most important key learning that we observed, if the product is not delivering insight to business, then there is no value of reading that product. The product should also be created by a business use case perspective. It should be delivered in the form, if you have a business use case, then only create a product. Otherwise, just don't create products and doing engineering things just to create the products for it. The other important point is time to market. Business stakeholders look for time to market easily. And if I am thirsty, I need water. Hot or cold can wait for later. So if you want to launch something, you have to keep ensure that reusability aspects are there when you are building those kind of products. The third important thing is the exploratory data analysis and statistical analysis is the key foundation if you are trying to derive an insight. If you have not done that right, there is no value of bringing that insight to the stakeholder. The other important thing is shifting left in the testing, like you normally do unit test, integration test, contract test in a normal product development or an API development. The same thought process needs to be baked in the data as a product mindset as well. And you have to do it early so that you can incorporate those feedbacks early. That is one of the important things of shifting left in the testing phase of it. And last but not the least, we know that business always evolves. They'll come with new requirements. You have to build new products. You'll generate new data. They'll again come with new requirements. So requirements will evolve. So you should always evolve in a slowly and gradually fashion.
So building an analytics platform is a journey. It's not a destination, right? And a lot of us have kind of seen this, like what are the different phases while you're kind of building and evolving your analytics maturity model for your organization, right? So the first phase is descriptive analytics. It means like what actually happened, right? So for example, like incoming traffic, where did the incoming traffic came from? Like, or what was the incoming traffic, right? So this is where you leverage the descriptive analytics phase to help deliver key KPIs and metrics for your business stakeholders. The next phase is diagnostic. This is where you try to kind of decipher what happened and why did it happen, right? So for example, if the search exits kind of went up, your product discovery was not that great, what was the underlying reason? So this is where your diagnostic analytics phase comes into play and helps decipher those underneath hidden patterns. Another example is like what one of our friends called out, trying to kind of identify hidden patterns in terms of anomalies for early fraud detection. So this is where the diagnostic analytics comes into play. The next phase is like predictive analytics, right? So this is where you are trying to kind of predict early whether what is going to be the customer's behavior in terms of engagement. If the customer is not able to kind of find the products easily, or if you had to kind of find the cross-sell and upsell opportunities, where do you find it, how do you find it, and where do you start engaging the user? And this is where the prescriptive analytics comes into play. So we talked about the product recommendation model early on, which is nothing but a data product, and data product could be a historical model or a machine learning model. So this is where you're prescribing the business stakeholders or the product management what action you should take and help them deliver it to production. So this space is continuously evolving, and one of the additional phase which we are kind of looking at, and some of the spotlight was also put on in our keynote in the technology trends. And you'll also hear about it in next subsequent talks about you leveraging LLM or generative AI, right? So that's built on predominantly the natural language processing tech stack. So this is where the cognitive analytics kind of comes into play. So this is where you're actually able to simulate the human thought easily. So in order to be able to do that, for example, tomorrow if the business stakeholders like come to your desk and say like, hey, can you help me understand how the price of this particular product across different time frames and across different channels, sales channels, has helped affect the sales of this product and the overall revenue, right? So you would be able to take this requirement, but in order for your analytics and engineering team to kind of play this out, it might take a week or two or more than that, depending on how mature your organization is in terms of like managing the data and building data products. But if your data as a product, and the analytics platform foundation is mature, adding a layer of Gen AI and NLP makes it very easy to decipher those insights in fraction of seconds, if not few minutes. Okay. All right. That's all we had. We are open to questions. Thank you very much.